I made a phone call on my second day. I'd put in for one with the Chowich, but a suitable phone had to make its way to the cell block first. I didn't get any privacy, and in fact the Chowich stood ready to tie me. That's why I dialed Keller & Fox Asset Management, our 24-hour emergency helpline. And I was in for a nasty shock when they picked up. Keller & Fox Asset Management, this is Kate, how may I help? Kate, of all people, Kate. She never answered this line. In fact, she was in charge of the people who were in charge of the people manning that phone line. It's a very difficult job because you must be able to deal with all kinds of emergencies. It takes about 6 months before they'll let you do that without constant supervision. But Kate is one of the instructors, so I suppose it makes sense she handles a call every once in a while. But why this one? Hello? Anyone there? She asked. They won't hang up on you. This is Reginald Carstairs, I croaked, trying to keep it together. I could sense Kate tense up as well. Mr. Carstairs? Do you have the... She'd have recognized my voice, but she needed to hear one of 2 passwords. I chose the one for when I was not under duress. I was, but that other password is for when you're trapped under a car or something. Please don't let me cry. Not now, with 5 people listening in. Windmill. She sounded relieved. Okay, how can we help you? I spat out the information as quick as I could, knowing all calls were recorded. I'm currently detained at Riyadh Expat Prison in At Difa, Riyadh. I don't know the charges. I need urgent assistance and cash. Bring cash to the prison and I'll get it. Yes. Can we reach you on this number? No, I'm on a borrowed phone. Send cash regularly, weekly. Are you in good health, sir? Yes. My bowels would rupture sooner or later, but death would be a blessed relief. I didn't say that, of course. Do you have a prisoner number for me? That's how good Keller & Fox Asset Management is. They know to ask for that kind of stuff, from ample experience. No, I was detained at the airport, don't know why. The Chowich made an impatient gesture, pointing at his watch. I have to end the call now. Get me cash and I can call for longer. Bye. The Chowich took the phone from me and studied the display, which showed a timer. Then he disconnected the call. 1 minute, he growled. Cry is for baby, Christian. Do it tonight. I didn't know it at the time, but Caroline was already aware of my predicament. She had waited in vain at Heathrow Airport, and that was after KT had contacted her when my watch suddenly appeared within signal range after my flight had departed. But Caroline hadn't told anyone I was coming home, or even that suddenly I wasn't. Wheels were already set in motion, and presumably MI6 now had to deal with one of the biggest threats since its inception in 1909. A very, very irate Caroline Keller. Poor guys. About an hour after my phone call, an hour I had used productively to make a terrible spectacle of myself and lose any respect I might have had from my fellow inmates by going completely quiet while I cried my eyes out, one of the prison officers came to fetch me. I just dried up somewhat. "English! Where?" he yelled. 23 fingers pointed at me, which was disconcerting as I had missed the connection between the question and myself. People yelled things to other cells all the time. It all went in one ear and out the other, usually. "English! Visit for you!" "Oh, yes, here." He came up to me and consulted a clipboard. "You want visit?" He opened the cell door while his colleague took up a position near the entrance. He was the one holding a machine gun. Saudi prisons have a very simple yet effective way to keep the peace and make sure their officers are not accosted. If you try anything with the guy who's bringing you your food or walking you around, The other one fires randomly into the nearest cell. Works a fucking treat, that. Now every prisoner has an interest in making sure nobody messes with the screws. It hadn't happened in this prison for over a year, but stories about similar incidents in other prisons were shared like ghost stories around a campfire. "I'm not expecting a visitor," I said, because suddenly I was afraid I was actually being taken to an interrogation. "It is Edgbaston from British Embassy." "Edgbaston? You don't want to see him? It's fine with me," said the officer, and pushed me back into the cell. "Oh, wait, yes, the embassy. I'll see him, yes." As we now know, it wasn't Mr. Edgbaston. After the conversation with my dad, I was ordered to turn out my pockets, but there was no pat-down. I wouldn't particularly want to search a man who was entering day 4 in the same pair of briefs either, and to my surprise I was given 2/3 of the cash my father had brought along. That allowed me to settle my debt. I was then offered the chance to make some more phone calls at a very competitive rate, provided I promised not to cry during or after them. I passed, but indicated I wouldn't mind having my own phone so I could send text messages. Old, dumb phones are very much in demand in prisons because they work for up to 10 days on a single charge. They're also easier to hide. Along with my phone, I got back most of the contents of my suitcase, so I suddenly had some clean underwear, my toiletries, and even my watch. This was useless to me because, like the Aston Martin that was linked to it, it needed almost constant charging. The problem of voiding my bowels, however, remained. Not even a bribe could get me 5 minutes in private on a Western-style toilet. Deep inside my guts, small portions of rice, lentils and chicken turned into coal, which would eventually become a diamond. The 4th night in prison, I actually slept for about 7 hours. Isn't that amazing? You can get used to anything, it seems. I passed on breakfast and was informed by the chowich that the guards were now monitoring me and that a continued refusal to eat would result in being tied to a chair and having Ensure or ambronite poured down my throat. With that in mind, I had another look at the squat toilet, but recoiled so hard I hit my elbow on a wash basin. "I can make 5 minutes alone for you tonight," sighed the chowich, who was the person the guards would cuss out first if my bowels ruptured. "Thanks, but I'm looking for something more along the lines of a heroin overdose. Make it a double." "Next prison. Can't get here," was the deadpan answer. "Shame. Another prayer. It's been what, 5 hours? Wouldn't want the big guy to start feeling insecure." "I like better when you not talk." "Everyone I meet feels that way eventually." As my spare reading glasses had been returned to me, I settled in to read a befuddled copy of the Sigma Protocol, one of Ludlam's fanciful potboilers. It was offered to me for a packet of cigarettes, but when I turned out not to have any, the Indian gentleman who offered it to me just shrugged and gave me the book anyway. "I'll owe you," I promised. I managed exactly 6 pages, which is 1 page more than my previous Ludlam record, before 2 guards showed up. English, they said, more to the general public than to me. They didn't really keep track of who was in which cage, and in fact sometimes prisoners swapped over after the washroom visit. Chess was a popular way to pass the time, so that was the main reason they visited each other. "That'll be my massage," I quipped to nobody in particular. I wasn't trying to be funny, but industrial-grade sarcasm is just what keeps me going. I had no idea who was waiting for me, but with any luck it would be another envoy from home. I left my book and my glasses on my bed and meekly followed the guards. We didn't go to the room where I'd met my dad, which worried me. In fact, we went into a different wing of the building. This upset me. We then went upstairs, which put the fear of God in me. I was then ordered into a room with a one-way mirror, a sturdy table with a metal rail in the middle, a bucket in one corner and a chair in another. Why was the chair in a corner? I have no idea, but I suspected it had a lot to do with the steel rings that dangled off a pair of studs securely mounted on the ceiling. There was no side table with water and paper cups either. I was shitting bricks at this point, and pretty soon that would no longer be a figure of speech. A metal door shut behind me, and all I could do was wait. Would this be it? Was I going to grab whoever came into this room and bang their head on the table until a guard decided to shoot me? Would I be able to keep that up, or would they just taser me and send me to Chop Chop Square? I peered through the mirror, knowing full well this always makes you look like a scared idiot to the other side. It was warm here, no AC. My gut hurt. I missed my girls, Kate, Melody, Kelly, and Edwin, obviously. I'd do anything for that boy, absolutely anything. But doing anything doesn't mean being able to withstand everything. The door burst open so quickly and unexpectedly that I had no time to act, which was good because it was Asim who came in and immediately hugged me. I was perplexed and more than a little relieved. "Carstairs, cousin, it's him! He's here! Carstairs, how have you been? How have they treated you?" "Asim? Oi, stop squeezing me, I'm a ticking bomb." "Bomb?" asked Omar as he entered the room with a disapproving stare. I noticed he supported himself on a crutch. "Another one?" My heart sank. He knew. The jig was up. But Asim let go of me and gave me a worried look. "What's wrong, Reginald? Are you okay?" A guard stuck his head around the corner and said something in Arabic, which made everyone laugh. Then Asim said, "Carstairs, you can use the toilet in the warden's office. Do you want to go Yes, please." It took me 10 minutes to get rid of all that coprolite. It stank to high heaven, much to the dismay of the chief warden, as the toilet door opened to his private office. I think he decided to take the afternoon off then and there. "Word to the wise, install a decent toilet for Westerners," I said when I emerged. "I'm afraid this is definitely getting a mention in your Yelp review." "Shut up," he said, "because once your career has led you to the prison service, you really can't be demoted any further. No sane, ambitious 17-year-old has ever said, 'I'm going to work really hard and get the best grades so I can spend the rest of my life in an environment where people piss in buckets and need to be deloused.'" "Only fair," I shrugged, and turned my attention to Omar and Asim, who had been drinking coffee on the inevitable sofa in the warden's office, but who were now seriously considering relocating to somewhere less pungent, like a knacker's yard or a tannery. But as both men were royalty and Arabs tend to be well-mannered, they stayed seated and put their faith in the tiny ventilator at the back of the rather deep but narrow restroom. Omar spoke up first. His crutch was leaning on the wall next to him. Only now did I notice he wore an eye patch band-aid over his left eye. He also had some nasty scratches on his face, one with a single stitch in it. "So this is where you have been hiding, Carstairs." "Well, they do say good stuff is hard to find." Asim immediately cracked up and even slapped his knee, but Omar looked indignant. "We have been looking all over for you." "Oh, sure. It's my fault I was detained at the airport." "Well, not hard enough, I'd say, and I still don't know why I got sent here." "Hard to find? Ha ha, Reggie, I miss you so much," said Asim, still giggling. "Listen, it's very unfortunate. Omar had registered you in Upshare." "What?" "Upshare. It's an app from the government. It lets men record the passport number and other details of their family members, and it notifies the authorities when they try to leave the country without permission." That needed a moment to sink in. "You did what? You registered me? As property?" "Now calm down," said Omar. "You were my employee. I just entered your passport number as I do with all of my staff members. But the border guards thought you were fleeing from a contract, so they detained you. There were no charges." "And you only found out about this today?" I pulled up the warden's chair, as he had stepped out for a breather anyway. As my very, very accusatory stare was currently aimed at Asim, he was the one who answered me,